Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to get started in just a second here, if everyone could take their seats. I'd like to welcome you all to the 2007 Natural Connections Summit. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Katie Call, the project manager for West Michigan's Green Infrastructure Initiative. We've got an exciting day planned for you today with some speakers this morning who are going to be giving their perspectives on conservation planning from several different areas. This afternoon will be a series of breakout sessions that I'm also very excited about. I'd like to welcome this morning our first speaker, the chair of the Green Infrastructure Leadership Council, Bonnie Blackledge. She is also the clerk of Cannon Township. We're pleased to have her leadership on the Green Infrastructure Leadership Council. She adds great passion and expertise. She's been in local government for the last 15 years and gives a great perspective to us. So, Bonnie Blackledge.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you here. I thank you all for joining us. It's our second annual Natural Connections Summit. And just out of curiosity, how many of you made it to the first conference summit last year? Okay, quite a few of you, but we've got a lot of new faces too. That's wonderful. The West Michigan Strategic Alliance and the Green Infrastructure Leadership Council are pleased to partner with the Grand Valley chapter of the American Institute of Architects, with whom we have worked on the West Michigan Regional Urban Design charrettes. We want to especially thank the contributions of Nate Gillette, who is their president. Nate, is Nate here? And Mark Miller, Mark in the back, outstanding. He's the president-elect. And Bob Daverman, I saw Bob over here. They've all worked closely with us during this charrette process. And am I supposed to?
The clicker is on your podium.
Okay. All right. Let's see. There we go. One more. Okay. The theme of today's conference is celebrating the successes of the region's organizations, businesses, and local governmental units who are working towards sustainable planning efforts environmentally, economically, and with regard to increasing the quality of life in West Michigan. And some of those successes that have happened over the last year or two with our organizations that are members of the Green Infrastructure Leadership Council are the following. The Land Conservancy of West Michigan has preserved over 1,600 acres in the last 2 years, many of these within the 7-county region of the West Michigan Strategic Alliance. 400 additional acres have recently been approved for protection. Among these have been 500 acres north of Grand Haven, which are connecting to the Hoffmaster State Park. This is the North Ottawa Dunes project. As far as trails and greenways, there's been over 30 miles constructed in the last year in this area, in the West Michigan area. Another success story is that the Grand Valley Metropolitan Council has recently been awarded 2 grants from the Department of Environmental Quality for totaling $423,000, which will then officially form the Lower Grand River Organization of Watersheds. And these grants are to build capacity of the Watershed organization and update the watershed management plan. Another great success is in the area of farmland preservation through the Kent County PDR program. 2 farms, the Bradford and Robinson farms in Sparta Township, have been recently preserved, totaling 234 acres of preserved farmland. And also the City of Grand Rapids has been working on a Friends of the Park group to continue to raise funds, maintain and improve existing facilities, and develop new facilities. We count those as all our successes. And I want to thank you all for the sponsors that have helped with today's summit. They are Steelcase, Ridge River Farm in Derry, the Community Foundation of Holland and Zealand, GMB Architects, Metrics Reporting, Rhodes McKee, and Progressive AE for donating many hours of their staff time toward the charrette process. We also wish to thank DBI Business Interiors in Lansing and Jackson for their donation of the recycled paper products that we're using today, including the summit folder and the contents within. A few housekeeping items. The afternoon sessions that you signed up for are noted in your folder. Please attend them in the order that they're listed, so we're sure that we have enough seats in the rooms. I think they're going to be quite full, so make sure that you attend the one you're assigned to. Feedback throughout the day is welcome. If you have any comments about the conference, any of us with the green ribbons on our name tags, you can let us know how you think things are going. When you leave today, please deposit your name tag on the registration table so we can use it again. As Katie said, I'm the new chairperson for the Green Infrastructure Leadership Council. I was elected in September, so this is hit the ground running. We recently came up with an organizational structure, and our vision statement, as you can see behind me, is to provide collaborative leadership in regional efforts that preserve, protect, and restore urban and rural natural features and resources that make up West Michigan's Green Infrastructure Network. And we want to thank the West Michigan Strategic Alliance for giving us the resources, support, and framework to move forward as we develop a focus on the regional environmental sustainability objectives. We are also looking forward to being able to meet our objectives that we've developed in our recently approved strategic plan, and Katie will be talking about that in a few minutes. Our mission statement is to encourage regional collaboration and translate the best practices in green infrastructure planning to decision makers and communities, creating, enhancing, and protecting a sustainable green infrastructure network. We're very excited about being able to reach out to the communities in the near future and try to get everybody to get on board with our vision. We look forward to an opportunity to reinvest in the green infrastructure that exists within our built environment, to leverage the knowledge of professionals in the field to assist us in this process, and to equate economic success with sustainable growth while protecting our green infrastructure, which includes the lakes, rivers, shorelines, trails, greenways, parks, and farmland in our West Michigan area. And with that, I will bring Katie back up to talk to you about our strategic plan.
As Bonnie mentioned, the theme of this year's summit is On the Path to a Green Economy, Recognizing Green Infrastructure Success Stories. We wanted to have this conference today as we were thinking about what the theme was going to be. We were thinking about all the local accomplishments that happen all the time that we might not do a good enough job patting ourselves on the back, you all patting yourselves on the back for, everyone recognizing the great things that are happening cumulatively to make West Michigan one of the best places in the Midwest to live, learn, work, and play, as the WMSA vision states. My role as the Green Infrastructure Project Manager under the larger West Michigan Strategic Alliance umbrella is to focus on that priority of ensuring a sustainable environment. Obviously, all 6 priorities fit within the framework of what the Green Infrastructure Initiative is looking to achieve, but under that priority, representative leadership from local units of government, businesses, conservation organizations, education and research institutions, went from a task force in 2002 where they had the vision to create this great document called the West Michigan Green Infrastructure Strategy to a Green Infrastructure Leadership Council in 2007, which, as Bonnie mentioned, passed a strategic plan this year, a 3-year strategic plan. The partners on the Green Infrastructure Leadership Council are listed here. These are the folks in the room, as Bonnie mentioned, with the green name tags. If you hear something you like today, if you have a great idea, if you get inspired by something that's said, or if you have a little grumble, you can let any of us know about that. These are the folks, like all of you out there. Actually, would those Leadership Council members stand right now, please? Please. A little round of applause. Thank you for all the work that you do, and thanks to everybody in the room. You all are the folks that are making the on-the-ground land use decisions that are shaping the way our landscape is going to look in the future. And these are critically important jobs. Green infrastructure is defined as an interconnected network of green space and environmental assets that preserve the function of natural ecosystems and provide associated benefits to people. So that translates to not just being concerned with the water quality in your county, or preserving a park in your city, or your own back 40, which are all extremely noble efforts, but thinking about this with a regional perspective and understanding the holistic connection of the environment, our economies, and our quality of life. And the fact that it takes a mix of conservation tools, not only to protect this land, but to manage it. All of the local efforts that we're all working on equate to regional success for West Michigan. And I also want to talk about the urgency of protecting this green infrastructure network. The original charge to the Green Infrastructure Task Force was to construct a 25-year vision for permanent protection of open space in West Michigan. We don't have 25 years. We need to think strategically about the right places for residential and commercial development now, and then also think strategically at the same time about the right places to conserve our natural assets in West Michigan, to make it the valuable, pristine place that it is, that make people want to come to Michigan. Agriculture and tourism are 2 of the 3 top revenue sources in Michigan. People come here for the beautiful Lake Michigan shoreline, to hunt, fish, hike, bike, camp. We need to be strategic in our planning and zoning. On September 25th, the Green Infrastructure Leadership Council passed a 3-year strategic plan of prioritized objectives focused around the goals you see right here. This plan, when we were sitting around the table talking about 7 counties, 179 local units of government, a huge number of organizations that are interested in so many common goals, how do you get your arms around that? So we put a stake in the sand and said, we got to start somewhere. Many of the jobs that a lot of you in the room have focus around those subheadings under goal number 1. Goals 2 through 5 are more of the process-oriented goals that the Leadership Council is looking to achieve long-term. We've had a busy year. As we've gone through the strategic plan, we've identified where a lot of information gaps are. And in 2008, we're going to be forming focus groups around a lot of the subheadings under number 1. By filling out that demographic card in your folder today, you can become as much or as little involved as you'd like to be, but it's a way for us to get in touch with you. So please consider filling those out and letting us know what you're interested in. Our Memorandum of Understanding with the Michigan State Land Policy Institute, you'll hear from Soji Adelaja later today, this partnership is going to be able to allow us to empower so many local efforts that are happening around the region to help us continue to become the regional template of collaboration that we want to be. This is a big effort, and it's an exciting time, and I'm really looking forward to working with you all in 2008. The Leadership Council is looking forward to working with you in 2008 and looking to get more folks involved. So I won't stand up here any longer. I know we're just a little bit behind schedule. I would like to introduce now Brenda Vandermeulen, who is going to be doing some audience polling this morning and a little bit throughout the day, because the Leadership Council would like to get your feedback on the strategic plan. So without further ado, we're going to move forward.
Good morning. Most of you have probably used keypads once or twice. I know if you've ever been to one of these, you probably have. Throughout the day, we're going to be asking you a number of different questions, but we're going to start this morning by asking you some questions about who you are. Once we know that, we're going to try to be able to analyze data the rest of the day based on that. That means it's important for you to use the same keypad throughout the day because your data will be anonymous other than the fact that it will be associated with that keypad number. So if you have a blue keypad, you'll see your number real clearly right on the top, 1 through 50. If you have a black keypad, flip it over and there's a little sticky note on the back that tells you your keypad number. And if you could keep track of that, I would really appreciate it. Don't know why that did that. Please leave the keypads right on these tables when you end up today, and then we'll pick them up later on. But we will be using them this afternoon as well. So if you can remember kind of where you're sitting or take it with you, whichever you'd like to do. I just need to make sure that I get the same number back that I rented. You're going to be asked some demographic questions. Your answers are going to be multiple choice. The numbers will come up on the left-hand side, and you just press the number and let go of the one that matches it. We'd like to warm you up. I'll be showing the answers as we go along, and then, of course, afterwards we'll be able to do some analysis that will help the Green Infrastructure Initiative Leadership Council really understand what your perspectives are on these different issues. The results will also be put out on the website for you to look at later if you'd like. We'd like to ask you a question first just to get you warmed up, and that'll get you going. It'll have a little timer on it, show you how everything works. And so here's the question. What's a watershed? If you believe it is a small building near a river, stream, lake that filters water, press 1. A geographic area that surrounds each county administered by the county, press 2. An area in which all water flows towards a common river, lake, or stream, press 3. And if you don't know, just press 4. And I don't actually have the timer on because I want to get as many of you in as possible here. You can see you have about 20 seconds to answer these questions. Hey, most of you got it right. Now, you all giggled when we said number 1. Katie tells me the reason we did that is that 32% of the general population answered number 1 when asked what a watershed was. Okay, with that, we're going to ask you some demographic questions about who you are. What type of organization do you work in? Pretty straightforward. If you work in education, 1, business for profit, 2, local or state government, 3, nonprofit, public sector, 4. If you're here as a private citizen, 5, and if none of those fit you, 6. And we have 116 people in. Which of the following best describes your role within your organization? You're an executive director, president, CEO, management, staff member, volunteer, private citizen, or other. Looks like 116 is a pretty good number. In which arena do you work or volunteer? If more than one, select the arena where you spend most of your time. And if your number's up there at the bottom, you're not in yet. Changed the rules, didn't we? What is your age group? If you're not sure, somebody next to you might give you an idea. You're in pretty fast on that one. Now this one ought to be even faster. $38 and $145 if you want to ask your neighbor. Okay, over on this screen over here, you should see a map come up. Could you click 1 through 9 based on where you live? Or I'm sorry, where you work? This will be work the next, live or work. Live. I'm sorry, our map says work, but it's really live. We did one map for two things. So where do you live? And now, where do you work or volunteer? And this is going to be our last question, then we'll take a quick look at those answers. Some of you aren't quite sure where you work. Okay, we have 39% of you from the government here today, and pretty evenly divided between for-profit and not-for-profit, with some education folks. Leadership and staff primarily, not too many volunteers. Working in the environment or in government primarily. Baby boomers are here today. Area 6 is what on the map? Could we bring the map back up? Grand Rapids, okay. Mostly the Grand Rapids area for both living and working. And with that, let's bring Greg Northrup up, the president of the West Michigan Strategic Alliance, to talk with you a little bit.
Good morning, everybody. If you don't know me, I'm Greg Northrup, president of the West Michigan Strategic Alliance. Brenda and I are becoming good friends. You will not go to an event at the Alliance is sponsoring where we don't evaluate your respect for what we're trying to do and actually try to understand who you are and how you participate in this process. From year to year, we ought to be able to show what are we doing and how well are we doing what we're trying to do, in this case, green infrastructure. Brenda's going to be a continuing fixture at these events. She likes that. Yeah, I know. But we appreciate it, and we appreciate your input to the process, because consistency of data is critical to us. Those of you that know me know I'm big on performance. One of the ways we build performance is build a good data history of who it is that we're talking to and how we deal with the issues that are important to you. This is another great day. I picked up Tom Daniels, our speaker, who you'll hear later today. It's raining. I said this is a good thing. Governor Richardson down in New Mexico would love to see some of our rain. Of course, we all understood that Governor didn't get a very positive response from our governor relative to the potential export of water. My response to that question is, if you need water, come back to Michigan, because we got lots of water and we got great infrastructure. Today is a great day, and it's an interesting day in the sense that we've lined up 3 speakers to talk to you about the economy, the environment, and our social responsibility. And I don't think we should ever use these words where they're not being used together. It's an interesting choice of terms in terms of the invest in a green economy as part of our program today, because it's an investment in intellectual capital. It's an investment in quality of life that's critical to our region's success. It's an investment that will allow us to retain and attract intellectually smart people. It's an investment that we need to make for our citizens to be able to enjoy the quality of life that we have here. And I'm pleased that Dr. Soji Adelaji from MSU is with us today. I'm pleased that Steve Heacock is with us today. And I'm pleased that Barbara Nelson Jameson is with us today. All 3 of these people are on this program because they bring a passion to the work that we're doing. They bring a commitment to make us better. And working with you, we hope to put that commitment to work in more and more ways, and this conference is just one of the ways that we do that. I had the opportunity last night to attend a wonderful ceremony at Grand Valley State University. They recognized John Kennedy for his contribution in the new engineering school that's been added to the campus. And I appreciate Dr. Haas joining us this morning, who is helping to lead that effort. We talked about the importance of our intellectual capital and retaining these people. Do you know that had the university had more resources, they could have accepted 900 more students. And do you know that 80% or approximately that many graduates stay in West Michigan? It's a wonderful investment that we're making through the university, and they're staying here in part because I think we have great quality of life. But we turned down 900 students. What that meant is that we turned down 900 or almost 700 future residents because we couldn't get them into the GVSU system. And I look forward to more partnerships with GVSU as part of this process of making sure that the quality of life here is what it is should be. And I see people like John Koshius in the audience, who we work closely with at the Annis Water Resource Institute. We have great assets in this region. Our challenge is to integrate the assets and put them to work in a way that makes this the best place, a best place to live, work, and play. And so I appreciate all of you joining us this morning. I'm going to introduce all three speakers. They, in turn, will just come up when each of them are finished. Soji will introduce Steve. Steve will introduce Barb, and we'll move through the process this way. Soji is going to talk to us about investing from an economic development perspective in a green infrastructure. Those are interesting juxtaposition of words. Economic development, green infrastructure. Typically, you don't hear those words used together. But, in fact, it's the new mantra for communities that will be successful. Soji is director of the Land Policy Institute. He's the John Hanna Distinguished Professor. He brings over 20 years of expertise to land policy and land policy thinking. And we're fortunate to have him as a partner. And as Katie alluded to earlier this year, we signed a memorandum of understanding to work more closely with MSU and the Land Policy Institute to bring intellectual capital to our region. And at the same time, what Soji likes about what we have is we have a collaboration process in place that allows us to put that intellectual capital to work. So we take the good ideas that are coming out of the Land Policy Institute and we put them to work here in West Michigan. Good for us. And I appreciate Soji's support and mentoring because I've learned a lot from Soji in the last year or so that we've been working together, and I look forward to strengthening that partnership on a go-forward basis. Steve Heacock, another wonderful individual. I say that because he's the chair of my board, but truly brings great thought process to what we're trying to do here in West Michigan. Formerly was the chair of the Kent County Board of Commissioners, and Steve truly does have a good feel for how local governments work and how we can actually help move the process forward. And Kent County has been instrumental in some of the land use planning kinds of things that we've been talking about. Steve and I and some others are interested in this new group called Millennials. We had a discussion with a group of millennials a couple weeks ago. These are the people that are 25 to 34 years of age that everybody's trying to attract now as part of their process. The millennial that I talked to is a young guy. He's about 28 years of age. He works downtown Grand Rapids. He loves what he can do there. But his view of life is, I want to be able to hop in my car and drive no more than a half hour to get to a campsite. If you change it such that I have to drive 2 hours, you just changed my quality of life. And so what he's saying to us, it's important that we have the infrastructure that our urban areas can offer, but it's also important to us to have the rural capabilities to meet the needs of our citizens, not only during the week, but on the weekends. And we have great options available to us. And so Steve will talk to us about quality of life and what it means from his perspective. Lastly, as part of our process, we bring experts to town. And one of those experts is Barbara Nelson Jameson from the National Park Service. I'm jealous of Barbara. She lives in Suttons Bay, which is one of those communities that I love to visit. So she gets to live there every day, though. You know? And I said, why is that? And she says, well, the National Park Service has an office up in the National Dunes. And I said, oh, okay, I understand that issue. Barbara, her list of activities and involvement go on and on and on. And she's here today to bring us some understanding about what's going on in the state and some other best practices, kinds of things that we can learn about. And so we appreciate her being with us as well. Their bios are in your folders. There's very nice photos in there, by the way. Whoever took the photos, nice job. But extensive information about all three of our speakers. And so with that, get me out of here and get Soji up on the stage. Soji Adelaji, please join us.
It's my pleasure to join you here in West Michigan Grand Rapids area at this very important conference. This is my second year attending this. Last year, the Land Policy Institute, my colleagues and my staff were very impressed to see how very rapidly the West Michigan Strategic Alliance has progressed with its green infrastructure initiative. We believe that it's the right way to go. We believe that it's an important strategy for West Michigan. We believe that West Michigan is in fact very unique in its combination of assets and resources, and its green infrastructure assets are so powerful and so important that we have to build a strategy for economic growth and prosperity around that. It's been a pleasure to work with Katie and with Greg, of course, and it's a pleasure to see Tom from back east. Him and I have known each other for a while, and our paths have crossed in a number of very interesting ways. I'm sure he's chuckling as I say that. The topic of my brief remarks this morning is the green infrastructure pathway to West Michigan's prosperity. And for those of you who know me, I'm a student of Stephen Covey, so I believe that you start with the end in mind with any task that you're given. So I will start with the definition of prosperity. If green infrastructure is a strategy for prosperity, what does prosperity really mean? So let me start there. And as an academic, I went back to the basics and I went to the dictionary because it says a lot. The definition it presents is a state of health, happiness, and prospering with steady good fortune or financial security. Of course, notice the term good fortune and financial security. For those of us who live in Michigan today, in fact, the Midwest and the Great Lakes states, we find that prosperity has kind of eluded us. It's been a challenge the last 10, 15, perhaps even 20 years. My own definition of prosperity from the last Michigan Prosperity Summit that we held in East Lansing is a state of stable, reliable, and secure growth with rising employment, income, and overall quality of life that ensures what I call transcendental success. And I think that term, transcendental success, is extremely important. It's success that can't be taken away from you. If you're successful in a way that's resilient, in a way that it sticks, it just means that you've built your prosperity on very fundamental things that are uniquely yours that nobody else can take away from you. And that links us very directly to the whole concept of what I call strategic growth, which is building your future on your comparative advantage, building your future on your assets. If you've followed the book of Stephen Friedman, he talks about the world being flat. The growth of the world is only at about 3% per year, even less than that. So, you know, every community around the world wants to have a piece of that 3%. Hopefully we can grow 5% a year or 7%, and some other community would be, you know, perhaps even declining. But what has happened in the world is that the world has changed. We're dealing in a world where some of us call the new economy, where growth is contestable. Everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to be successful. The luck that we had on growth in the past is just not there anymore. With information technology, with the globalization of the world economy, China's looking to grow. They're doing 9% a year. So the challenge we face is how do we build our future on a strategy that guarantees that we outperform others? I think that's the challenge that we face in Michigan. I think that's the challenge that we face in West Michigan. And I think that's the challenge that, in fact, this country faces. You're probably asking the question, okay, so you've defined prosperity. Now, how does prosperity relate to green infrastructure? But let me digress for a second before I do that and talk about prosperity in the new economy. I am not advancing this. I should have. Okay. Okay. I mentioned earlier that prosperity and growth is a zero-sum game, and so many other communities want to make progress. The winners in this new world of of global competitiveness are those that leverage their assets and that build on unique assets, that build new unique assets, things that you cannot take away from them. We need to make a distinction between the old economy and the new economy. In the old economy, you know, the critical strategy for economic development was you try to attract that major manufacturer, you try to compete on the basis of low wages, you offer some incentives, some tax incentives, you know, low taxes, you build a sports stadium, and so on and so forth, and that's how you drove your economy. So it's a zero-sum game. One community is constantly competing with the other, not necessarily competing on the basis of specific, unique assets. In the new economy, we're told that talent drives the economy. Knowledge workers become the currency of economic development. So growth has become very fungible. It follows this very talented people around, and where they choose to live and reside basically drive where economic development is going to be. And what drives them? Quality of life, and an important component of that is green infrastructure. And I'll elaborate a little bit further on that in a few minutes. This diagram basically shows the distinction between the old economy strategy and the new economy strategy. I mentioned earlier a low-cost location had power in the old economy. It basically attracted those that create jobs. Manufacturing jobs was a typical category of jobs in the old economy. Of course, that attracted people, so population growth comes as a result of that. A series of service jobs might follow that, and that's how you achieve prosperity. The rules have pretty much changed because amenities are the things that drive economic development today. And it boils down to this notion of knowledge workers who are looking for great places to live, who will follow their hearts to those communities that they're very comfortable at, and those are the engines of economic development. We're not talking about large corporations creating the jobs anymore. In fact, if you look at the percentage of jobs created by large companies, it continues to decline and decline and decline. Smaller companies, fast growth companies are the drivers of the economy, and it's important to recognize that. What are these talented people like? We need to understand them in fashioning a strategy for our economic development. Let's start with the creative part of this cohort of people in our society. They creatively pursue new ideas and ventures. They're extremely socially tolerant. They're open to new ways of thinking. That makes them very innovative. They accept and are open to newcomers. They're not very judgmental. They value diversity. They want to be around other talented people like themselves, and they tend to marry other talented people. So we're talking about they themselves being magnets for other talented people. So the snowball effect of recruiting talent is extremely significant. But they want high quality of life where they live and where they work. And they also want to live where they work. They don't want to commute like my generation. They want to live in communities where their workplace is just right down the street from where they live. They value green infrastructure. We used to talk about stock options for offering stock options to recruit and lure people between companies. These days, they really are looking for recreational options and quality of life options and job options. In fact, in many cases, they prefer and feel more comfortable creating their own job opportunities as opposed to looking for somebody to give them a job. It's also good news for those of us that are concerned about sprawl because they need to sprawl less. They sprawl less because of their lifestyles. So it's good news for those of us that are concerned about sprawl. What are they looking for? I got it right, okay. They're looking for active and dynamic living environments with lots of fun, recreation, culture, social interaction, diverse choices. I believe fundamentally that West Michigan is rich in those options. They are amenities driven. They like parks, outdoors, thriving farms, sports, hunting, fishing, waterways, greenery, and I believe that West Michigan is rich in those assets also. In fact, much of Michigan is rich in those assets. They want diverse lifestyle choices. So things like multimodal transportation, diversity of housing types, housing prices, and density is of interest to them. They're looking for business and entrepreneurial opportunities in new age industries. They're looking for new age opportunities. So creativity, risk-taking, good market for innovation, high wages tend to go with them, and they pursue those kinds of things themselves. It's really interesting. Our cities are trying to build sports stadiums, but the talented are looking for bike paths. They're looking for ways they can express themselves physically and enjoy nature, have a good time, live in a good community, good quality of life. They don't want to work 18 hours a day like people in my generation did. They really want to have fun while they work at the same time. They don't want to spend a lot of time commuting. They just want to be able to go out, get lunch, get back on their computers, and think about those creative ways so they're looking for real assets. So a strategy that's based on building on your real assets and accentuating your real assets and leveraging those ones that you already have is the strategy for the future. Talent is flowing into 4 types of new economy hotspots around the nation, and they're those high-tech industrial complexes like the Research Triangle, and we're trying to do one with this research corridor thing in Michigan on the central eastern part of the state. High-end places with a buzz, places like Boulder, Colorado. Atlanta is now called Hotlanta. It's just kind of neat to be there. I like going there myself. New urban technology centers, but what is emerging is the attraction of people to what we call high amenity places with easily accessible outdoor and green infrastructure. You know, this year, the fastest growing state in the nation became the state of Idaho. I lived in Idaho. My generation, I was bored, right? And that's why I left Idaho. I lived in Idaho for 6 months. It was the state I lived in for the shortest, because the only thing I could do was, ski, go hunting, fishing, and I'm a kind of a city boy. But I could tell you right now that economic development seeks out those things that I ran away from. Of course, I'm not an entrepreneur, and that's why I didn't stay. If I was, I would have probably chosen to stay there for the amenities. But the point I'm making here is, in fact, high amenities and quality of life and green infrastructure are real, tangible instruments for economic development. They are. And I'll share with you very quickly in a few seconds some of the studies that we have done to quantify some of that. Okay. I don't need to define green infrastructure because somebody else defined it earlier. I'll just give you a second to kind of glean over this. And I'm drawing this conclusion from the Green Infrastructure Work Group, which defined this comprehensively. And when I look at the scope of activities the West Michigan Strategic Alliance is targeting for the region, it fits this description totally. And West Michigan is rich in these assets. I have to stress that. And what are those assets? Nearly 100 miles of shoreline and dune habitat. It's very rare in this country. Very few places exist. Very few regions can boast of that kind of infrastructure. Over 600 miles of trails and greenways that already exist, that don't have to be constructed. They already are here. About 13 watersheds in the area. Makes for very interesting ecoculture in this area. A strong commitment to farmland preservation, a goal of 18,000 acres of farmland preservation. And we need to recognize the connection between the future economy of West Michigan and our effort to farmland preservation. Somebody mentioned water. Other people begin to look at our water. I think Michigan better get very, very serious in understanding the value of that resource and start taking action to make sure it's protected. When it becomes a currency of economic development in the nation, we need to be able to profit from it. So it's a major real asset that we should be looking at as an asset. Diverse and extensive agriculture. The Fruit Ridge is one of the most unbelievable agricultural infrastructure that you can imagine everywhere. And I've studied agriculture across the nation, and it's just a unique place with the diversity of crops, products, high-value products, and within access to many communities in this region, it's a major, major, major asset. Agritourism opportunities, bed and breakfast opportunities, pick your own opportunities, farm-based recreation. Those are the types of things that, again, would attract this talent workers, this knowledge-based workers that I was talking about earlier. And when you, of course, add on top of that some of the things that the West Michigan Strategic Alliance is working on, like the Wired initiative, and some of the things that the region is working on, the biomedical life cluster, life science cluster, I think really we have the combination of assets here that we can build on to make this region very, very attractive for economic development. Let me just share with you at this point some of the work that we're doing at the Land Policy Institute to try to document the impact of green infrastructure. Not much work has been done nationally. Before I do that, let me just share with you what's going on in another part of the country. And this is King County out in Washington. Their county executive just announced that his budget for 2007 was contain $20 million to support green infrastructure initiatives. So to give you a sense, this is happening across the nation. Others are beginning to recognize that connection between green infrastructure and economic development. In his own words, he felt that this was the best investment you could make. I think it's in recognition of that connection between green infrastructure development and economic development. The Land Policy Institute, we're just finishing a study titled How States Grow. And what we've attempted to do is to decompose growth across all 50 states, 5-year growth across all 50 states, and try to determine where growth comes from. We had a number of old economy factors and some new economy factors. We certainly wanted to capture green infrastructure-related factors. And here's what we're finding out. A significant chunk of the growth that has occurred in American states is tied very directly to what we might call green infrastructure. We had variables such as Green Plant Capacity Index, which the Resource Renewal Institute, this index they developed of 24 measures that captured a state's commitment to green infrastructure. We had expenditure on green infrastructure and acres of state park, as some of the variables in there. All three factors were significant in our regression analysis, which suggested that states that had built on those assets and that had those assets performed better. Their growth was better. Your growth is better if you had those resources in place. I think it's important to recognize that. Of course, other things were significant too, such as the percentage of the state population that had a college degree, urban population, broadband connection capacity, some of the IT variables that new economy folks tell us are important. So we feel this is one of the earlier documentation of the implications of green infrastructure for economic development. We think it's an important study. I'm really having real difficulty with this thing here. I have to look behind me. I also wanted to highlight some of the work that we're doing, looking at the economic contributions of green infrastructure in terms of property values and so on and so forth. My colleague would be presenting later on, and we'll be talking a little bit about this later on. We're finding, for example, that water amenities add to property values significantly, which translate into, of course, property tax revenues for communities across Michigan. A decent amount of property tax revenues of many of our communities is tied to many of these natural resources. And you can look at the numbers here, just based on locations where we've done these studies, the impact of things that relate to green infrastructure on property values. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that in another study that we did, we found that in spite of the fact that Michigan is extremely rich in its natural resource base and in its green infrastructure, and in fact we're at the very top of the nation in that resource base. We're also at the very bottom of the nation in our financial commitment as a state to green infrastructure, natural resources. Given the fact that this is important to economic development, I think this is a major state policy mistake. But I think it's an opportunity for West Michigan to focus on that. You obviously have it right. Focus on green infrastructure as a strategy for economic development. I think our state in general should be more aggressive about promoting the future of Michigan based on the strategy of promoting green infrastructure. I want to end by sharing with you this. I'm sure it's not good news for many people who worry about economic development. It's the new Milken Institute's report on 200 large metro areas in the United States, and it lists the performance, or it ranks the performance of different communities across the United States. When I looked at that list, the top 50 places obviously were places that had natural assets, strong assets. You know, some of them were in Florida, obviously. Water is an issue there. The sun is an issue. But there are also places in that top 50 that really have built themselves on the basis of their assets. But if you look at Michigan, I think 5 out of 10 spots in the bottom 10 were Michigan cities. We have a lot of work to do to rebuild our state, and an important part of our strategy has to be green infrastructure. More evidence will come out in the next 4 or 5 years about the contributions of green infrastructure to economic development, and I think the West Michigan Strategic Alliance in this region is being extremely smart by focusing on this narrowly, this road that not most people are following as a key strategy for the economic development of the region. Thank you. I hope I haven't taken too much time. Thank you.